I've got with me here Lisa Pouliot again from Dishcraft. Welcome back. And Dave Zito is joining us from Miso Robotics. So this is going to be a fun, good time here. As soon as I get my notes open here, I got another page. So you guys are both in the restaurant biz, the restaurant game. And I want to know, what jobs are restaurants looking to automate? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had I'm sorry about that. What jobs are restaurants looking to automate? So we'll just start with that. Yeah.
Well, we at Miso started with Flippy. How many in the room here have heard of Flippy or seen Flippy? Okay. So first off, let me just say that Miso Robotics is not in the hamburger flipping business, but it is where we got started. So we are actually on a mission to free the commercial kitchen from repetitive tasks and mediocre menus. Big vision, big mission. And we started that by demonstrating our proof of technology with Flippy, which many of you have seen, which is great. So to answer your question, what tasks? The way we look at the problem is actually we need to figure out ways to automate almost everything in the kitchen. If you look at the labor problem that is facing operators today, we need 6 million bodies, which would be 12 million hands, to meet the rising demand for prepared food. And that's a $12 trillion opportunity worldwide. And increasingly, the hands that used to cook food for us have vacated commercial kitchens to drive Ubers, candidly. So we are facing a need that this technology is kind of, frankly, behind on what operators and restaurant developers are asking for.
And I know you're still in stealth mode, so I will honor and respect that. So, but to the extent, like, as you are talking with people, what are the things they're coming to you? Are they coming to you saying, oh, man, if we could automate this, blah, that would be great?
Yes, I mean, even here people come up to me and say, like, hey, we need prep work, we need folding napkins, we need logistics of moving, produce from place to place. There's no end of tasks in the kitchen that can get done. We focus on anything that we want to create value and create a happier workplace, and so let chefs do what they do great, which is cooking, and then everything around it we would like to take care of.
Okay. That's a great place to start. So now you've got the interest from the restaurants, right? And they want to automate certain tasks. How are you building out sort of what's important to consider when you're designing a robot that has to work alongside humans? So at Cali Burger, right, there is like a Les Nessman-esque taped off office for old people in the room that Flippy coexists, right, or exists. And,
we solved that problem using 2D LiDAR sensors initially that create sort of a radius around where Flippy works. And it kind of keeps an eye on the chefs, or we call them chef techs, that have been trained to work alongside these systems. So these are industrial 6-axis arms that we've adapted with our cloud-connected learning platform. We call Miso AI. We kind of put eyes and a brain on a 6-axis arm first, a sleeve for cleanability and things like this to get it NSF certified, and then added these sensors around it so that it can collaborate with the chef techs that work alongside it. And so as the chef moves near it, we see that, and it slows down the arm and stops it from moving if it gets too close, and that's how we make sure that it's safe.
So, again, to the extent that you can talk about that, like, as you build in these safety features, what other considerations do you have to consider? Things like grease and water and sauces and other kinds of things that will go flying around. And how are you sort of thinking about overcoming those challenges?
Great. Yeah, so we, primarily we have to be reliable, safe, sustainable, and so kitchens are very, very messy places, and there's one of the highest accidents of slips, falls, trips, burns, and so we have designed our units to be constrained in such a way as to prevent any accidents from happening, because number one, you can't get anyone hurt.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd just build on that and say that these systems are safety critical systems, right? And so we're leveraging the certifications and the standards that have been built inside industrial manufacturing environments for cobotics. So we adhere to that, and then along and beyond how unsafe commercial kitchens are today, right? That it kind of goes back to your first question, which I do want to answer, which is there is an operator desire to bring our systems and focus on spot automation around grills, fryers, areas that where people do get burned, a lot of repetitive tasks, but then it's hot and it's uncomfortable. And so there is this go-to-market notion that bring these systems in now and help our staff now just increase throughput, meet customer demand, but then also make the job actually more enjoyable to trying to tackle that turnover problem that the industry is facing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both probably share a vision of have one person feel like the work of 3 or 4, because if you can automate something and all of a sudden create a happier workplace where the process is so much better and everything works smoothly, then the people who are there are going to have a much better, day.
So there are a lot of smarts that go into your machine. How do you have to dumb it down so that the average person can use it, right? Just, and again, just speaking in terms of, I would, somebody's being introduced to the robot for the first time. They may not know, like, do you have to have pictographs or, imagery that points people in the right direction? Like, how much training is there typically, or how much do you shoot for?
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Our systems, we're on the 4th version of our system now. We started at Cali Burger in Pasadena, the fast casual hamburger chain with Flippy. That's how Flippy got its name. But we then were contacted by Levy Restaurants, the division of Compass Group. And again, our system is designed as a platform that can be trained. So it took less than 6 months to train Flippy to then work a fryer. It works a bank of 4 fryers at Dodger Stadium. So we brought Flippy last baseball season after All-Star break there, and we cooked over 17,000 pounds of fresh breaded chicken tenders and tots there. And baseball's back, and we're happy to report that Flippy is back in this new form factor that is more easily cleanable and more deployable. And just to get back to your main question, which was what? I want to make sure I answer that.
No, just like how much do you... For training purposes, right?
Oh, right. So that was leading to a story. So the story was basically that I was in the stand on Saturday night, popped in just to say hi to Jim, the stand manager at Dodger Stadium in Chicken and Tots. Again, this is in the back of house, so fans can see it if they look through the window, but it is not a marketing ploy for them at all. It's a workhorse designed to increase throughput, reduce oil burn. It pays for itself in 12 months, and so it's been a very successful. It's beyond the pilot stage for them, and it's now a permanent purchase for them, so something we're thrilled with. And I asked Jim, the stand manager, hey, what do you think of your robot? And he was like, I love my robot, thank you so much, which is always what you want to hear as an entrepreneur. It's great. But they have temp workers that come in, and the system is at a state now where it's so easy to learn with it that I asked them, I said, what are you doing with your temp? They're like, we train them in 15 minutes to work with Flippy. So these systems, they use iPads, they're simple interfaces, and in a lot of ways at Miso we feel like we're modernizing the experience and sort of elevating the role from a repetitive, low wage and trying to reimagine what it means to work in commercial kitchens and provide food for people, and we've been pretty successful at that to date.
And do you, like, as you're developing right now, right? So how much of what you're developing is sort of a training, whether that's like a person who, a fleet of people who go out and do hands-on training or online training, like how much of that are you putting together right now?
Sure. So we believe that this thing should be so simple to use that anyone can come in off the street. So in developing the product, we hired regularly from Paired and Winolo. So it was like people we had never seen before, and we didn't give an instruction manual, and we just said, figure it out, and we observed them, and they would say, hey, best shift ever. So we know we're on the right path because we believe, this should be, look, there's a multitude of languages used, and so you need to be so simple that you're not relying on heavy graphics or heavy, text commands, that it just works.
And I would add one of the benefits of I would imagine both of our systems compared to traditional interfaces. There's a cleaning aspect to this. So these systems are ML first, so they're reactionary. You don't need to touch any of the screens except for an exception handling cases. And so it really minimizes the amount of food that actually gets onto things, and then that reduces the sort of transmissions and things like that are sort of plaguing the fresh food industry.
Yeah, I can only imagine like the side work aspect of it. Like after you flip the ketchup bottles, you got to go, wipe down the robot. So I want to understand here, as you are going out again and talking to restaurants, what's sort of the delta between what their perception is of what a robot is versus what you have to educate them on, right? Like they may be thinking, oh, Rosie the robot's going to come in, pull open the thing on and whip up some chicken tenders, but Linda, how much education are you having to do for people, or do they have a pretty good sense?
No, we need to show a video, because initially when we just talk about our idea, people imagine what they've seen. They imagine either the Terminator or Rosie, and those
very
are two
different
extremes.
outcomes.
They're very big extremes, and in fact, like our systems are very constrained, and may look much more like an appliance than they do like what a perception of a robot is. And so the easiest way to understand is just to visually see what we do, and then it's accepted. But there has been, like, first when you say, hey, I'm working on this, they're like, what? They just imagine these crazy things wielding knives, and we're not that.
Okay, because you have that first call, right? Like you have a call with somebody where you might not get the benefit of a video where you're trying to explain it to people. And so I just didn't know, So I cold called initially when we started the company. I wanted to see, like, would restaurants be interested in what we had, this idea. And so I cold called 100. And 100 wrote back because we were solving such a major problem in the workplace. But they were very curious. I think robotics, they say, well, what is it? And so we always the response rate has been amazing, but then you do need to follow up with, this is what it looks like, and yes, it's reliable, yes, it's safe, we're not going to hurt anyone, we're not going to cause slips, falls, or burns. Is that part of the reason why you went to Cali? Like Cali Burger, Flippy is on display, right? Like it says Flippy's Kitchen above it. It is very clear who is making, right? And so it's kind of like a proving ground for people, or they can come in and see it in action. Was that?
Yeah, for me, again, it was, I wanted to check that box that diners were receptive to this, because it's sort of we might be selling to businesses, but this is really a B2B2C kind of sale. If consumers don't want to eat food made by a robot or Flippy, then we don't really have a business on behalf of our operators. So step one was just to check the box for me that consumers are going to be receptive to it. And that box actually checked way more than I was anticipating. It's still early days, but it's been incredible to see the response that diners have. I think they sort of intuitionally watch Flippy work, and they just see that it's cleaner. They're 6 inches away from a robot cooking for them. And then, of course, with any food brand, it's about building trust, right? And we really knew from the very beginning that we needed to make sure that our operators could trust us. And so this brought most of the major food brands in the world to our table. I see Sweet Green Hat in the audience. Jonathan and Nathan came by early days before we even launched, and you guys have an incredible brand and message about bringing nutritious food scalably. And we share that same alignment and that vision. We're starting with popular applications like burgers and fries and fried chicken and things like this, but our design of our platform is to make it easily trainable and adaptable to other situations. So we're fired up about eventually chopping kale, which I know is big on your roadmap.
The hat, by the way, is a nice touch. I recommend it for everybody at future conferences. You wear a hat, people know who you're with immediately. One question, and then I think we might have time for one more question, but let's just look into the future here. How far in do you think we're going to automate into the kitchen? And I realize that there are different dining experiences, right? But let's talk about the venues where you are looking to automate high volume, establishments. How far up are we going to automate, and what's the timeline for that? Linda, I'll start with you.
It's starting now. I'm seeing, you're already in some high volume locations. We are just entering into high volume locations. I think before you do all tasks, though, it is quite a while because robotics is not at its stage yet where it can do multifunction. And so I think where we both work pretty well is, here's this one constrained task and we can do 100%. We can do an amazing job at that. But we're not at the rosy phase yet where we have a mobile robot that can do 20 different tasks just because manipulation is pretty difficult. I mean, our hands are really amazing. I have new appreciation for it having gone into robotics. And so I do think that this is at least 10 years out before we can start really tackling every task.
Okay.
Yeah, I would concur with that. And I would say that, to your first question about that sort of gap of expectation, but at the same time, the fact that there is no world in 15 years where a large part of our food supply chain is heavily automated, that's actually a benefit for us, right? Now we can actually help empower chefs to unlock their culinary creativity at scale. Right now, we're sort of all brands that scale, you have to kind of think about reducing variety. It's almost like making food is like making hardware, like the hardware we make, right? And the goal is one integrated single SKU so you can manage the supply chain for consistency and things that diners demand. And yet we see this rise of on-demand with I heard a stat recently, 63% of the food eaten in restaurants this year was through drive-through, takeout, or delivery. 63%. So our technology, I think, increasingly the operators we're talking to are asking us to partner with them to reimagine this supply chain and how can we bring fresher and fresher ingredients, higher variety, locally grown stuff, direct to consumers at the flavors that they want and more personalized. Everything else in our lives is personalized, and yet food, the options, the apps, if you will, are fairly limited. So this feels like very early days, and I think the consumer change in behavior is a sea change that's happening much faster than any of us anticipated. And while we're a little behind on fine motor control and breakthroughs like what Vincent was sharing in Google is exactly the kind of work we're developing inside our lab. But it doesn't. The market needs this stuff before we're going to get there, and clever solutions like Sally on how to do hopperized delivery of ingredients, combined with machine learning based full stack software that we're working on. I think we can combine all of the solutions that everyone in this room is talking about, and really bring a better future forward for food for people. So it's a very exciting time to be involved in this space, and I do want to thank you guys for putting us on and inviting us.
Yeah, well, I think that's about all the time we have for right now. Thank you both so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Big round of applause, please. For